Global Chernobyl, Mom. Do you have something to read, or you gonna tell me off the top of your head? This is your homework assignment. Talk about what do you think of the global Chernobyl?
Okay, well, you asked me to do this from a nurse's point of view, and didn't require really a whole lot of research, as in research. It sort of ended up more, what my thoughts are about it, more than research. But anyway, for the audience that's out there, probably the ones who would be watching are too young to remember Chernobyl.
Right.
Chernobyl is a city in Ukraine, which was at that time a communist country. Do I have that right? I think it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Communism. Anyway, in Ukraine there was a nuclear accident that happened, and it was an accident. It wasn't intentional by any means. It was employees of this reactor who were not quite paying attention to what they actually knew they shouldn't do, and they went ahead and did it anyway. Anyway, as it turned out, this reactor went into a meltdown, which turned out to be disastrous. Fires and the whole thing went on. Anyway, it did not explode, but what happened was it released radiation into the atmosphere, which is not what a nuclear reactor should be doing. Anyway, by the time it was all over, this radiation contaminated the total continent of Europe.
Really, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I did go to Wikipedia and read a little bit about it, but I didn't realize that either. But it was the total continent of Europe, and they estimated that because of this contamination, from 9,000 to 16,000 people died of radiation poisoning as a result. And I remember as time went by, when that happened, this radiation eventually extended out even into our oceans. There were no reports of people around the whole world who died of this contamination, but that's how vast it ended up being.
I just want to ask a quick question.
Yeah,
in your reading, what was it like? When was the truth or the thing that happened? Was the international community informed right away, or did you not read up on that part of it?
No, I do remember. I remember it was 1986, but I do remember it coming into the news immediately. Nothing was hidden. No one tried to hide anything.
Okay.
There were not false reports.
Probably
they weren't.
Probably a little difficult to hide radiation in the atmosphere. Even back then, we had the technology to detect it, so I guess there was no point in covering it up.
Right, and there were, Americans, excuse me, Americans were living in Ukraine in one status or another, from our government, reporters, like they do all over the world, so that when this happened, it got out immediately. It wasn't something you could hide. Photos were there. It was not able to be swept under the carpet, so to speak.
Right.
And so it went worldwide, and of course the world was shocked by this.
And the immediate region was evacuated, or do you remember any of that? Like, nobody can live,
yes.
Even to this day, people don't live there, etc. I think.
You would have to go. You Google this whole incident, and it does go into all of those kinds of details. But
right.
Yes, they had to move people out, evacuate people out. The site was so totally contaminated. And what was really, really sad about it was the Ukrainian people who were employees that worked in this nuclear reactor site. They had to go in and do whatever needs to be done to try to stop it. These people died within days. But they had no other way to approach it. You had to use human resources to go in and try to stop this thing before it did actually detonate and, cause an actual nuclear explosion. So that was part of the sacrifice, but that's what had to be done at the time.
Right.
It's extremely interesting to read about it and realize, wow, something that could have been not the first, but an actual nuclear detonation like that was pretty frightening.
So it's like the core melting. We won't go into the details of exactly what
Yeah.
happened in Chernobyl, but so what parallels, or do you see any parallels to this virus outbreak? Because Chernobyl was localized, it was in the Ukraine, and ultimately, as you said, did affect, or at some level of radiation did reach all of Europe. How about what we're going through right now? Is this a global Chernobyl?
Here we go. Mom's gonna
I've just
go
cued you, Mom. Go.
I know you just cued me, so I'm just gonna go off on it.
I'll take some notes. I got a notepad here.
Oh, okay. Well, in comparing the two, number one, the global Chernobyl event was an accident.
So the thing that's, can you be a little more specific? The thing that happened. Tell me. This could be a soundbite if you say it.
The Chernobyl thing?
No. The thing that happened was an. Oh, are you saying the Chernobyl thing was an accident?
Yeah, the Chernobyl
Sorry.
event was an accident. Now, you have to stop and ask yourself, is that the truth? Well, the evidence that came out pointed to an accident. There was actual evidence that they could collect, just like in a plane crash.
Right.
They pick up all the parts of the plane and the black box and the whole thing, and they can determine, was this a human error? Was this a mechanical, failure? That kind of thing.
Right.
Now, you're talking about COVID-19.
Yep.
You have to put this event that we are into the perspective and climate of the world we're living in today. Understand?
Yep.
The mindset that we're living in our nation, and in the world today.
Okay.
If you can't view this without bringing in what's all around us that we know is all around us. What I'm trying to say is we're being told by a media that we can't trust that this was not a bioweapon. Get it?
Yep. That's at on April 7th, 2020, which is today, right now. That's, I think, the general. I think the majority of people who are saying anything, that's probably the side they defer to. Yeah.
See, the mainstream media today, this is no one's imagination. This is not a conspiracy theory about our mainstream media. We know that the mainstream media is corrupt overall. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I
There
mean,
are.
the evidence is all over the place. You can't deny that. That's not a conspiracy. That's just the truth.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, I work in. You could say I work in the media because I work in Hollywood, or I did until this happened. But uh, the there is corruption and collusion among there. It's all the almighty dollar, and so the companies that run the media are more interested in making money, even if they claim to be news sources. Uh, for the most part, they're more interested in what and reporting on what will get viewers. So that's a compromise of a standard. The news should be reported no matter whether it makes you money or not. But people want to make money, and that inherently colors the news. Like people want to hear salacious sensationalism because that dirty laundry. Yeah, there was a song from the '80s, but dirty laundry is just reporting on bad stuff, and when because people, it's like the car crash phenomenon. When you drive past a car crash, everybody slows down. It's everybody cranes their neck because they want to, I don't know what it is. We just want to see the mishap or something to talk about. And as a result, people who just watch that kind of content tend to think, the world's going to pot.
Well, Mike, it goes even beyond that. It's not just about ratings. It's also about our media, weaponizing
Because there are agendas. Yeah,
what they do.
right.
Yeah,
And
that's
in addition to, so it's about the money, but it's not.
right.
I actually don't think it's just about the money, but the money is one of the excuses
Oh, of
used. People
course.
are looking for are it's like clickbait, however many viewers you can get or followers, or how many
Of
people will
course.
tune in. But there's also an agenda, of course, and so there is something
And the
pernicious.
media, the media is not focused on telling the story, the truth that you and I are looking for. They're now focused on telling a story.
I do want to, before you continue, using sweeping terms like the media, even the mainstream media. Some people who might hear this or listen to this will say, well, they'll point out examples where there are some that deviate from the general consensus. So, but I understand when you're saying that you're talking about, for the most part, the media, because there's plenty of exceptions.
Well, right. And there are news outlets that are reliable.
Right.
That you and I we have to go find them, and they are reliable, and that's what we should be doing.
Right.
They don't participate in the what we refer to as the mainstream media. You have to do that on your own today.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is we have access now at our fingertips, and so we'll get back to our we're straying a little bit from our topic,
Yeah.
but I want to wrap up this tangent by saying uh, I tend to be optimistic because internet technology and even what we're doing right now, we're able to put a signal out there that anybody on the planet, except probably in China, well, countries that are closed to the West, but just about anybody, billions of people on the planet could technically get this live stream, and so news outlets, and you can put anything out there. We could be here just spouting all kinds of nonsense and lies, and every now and then we'll say something that's not true because everybody is mistaken about something. But the fact that the general public has access to information that used to be a monopoly, Right? There used to be 3 TV networks, and you just have to turn that box on and at a certain time
Right.
and get the news. And now it's a 24-hour news cycle, and people can find the truth. Yeah, you can find dissenting opinions, and you can filter them out. Most people still don't do that, but I think the trend is toward is moving in the right direction. So I'm optimistic.
Let me interrupt you. I'll be rude.
No, I'm done.
I'm gonna sum up my homework by just saying this, and that is, I do not for a second believe that this COVID-19 virus is a Chernobyl event. However, our response and the reaction to it definitely is. Definitely is. That's how I see this.
Meaning,
The response is disproportionate
okay.
to the actual outcome.
So
And
you're
I'm saying that because I don't even trust these models and graphs and all this crap that's being thrown at us. When the actual numbers come down to it, which we have no other way of comparing except what they're giving us. They seem to be genuine. When you take these numbers and start comparing with the flu seasons we've had of the past, they don't even come close to those numbers of the past. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, now every October when the flu season starts, let's go, lock everybody down, isolate everybody, quarantine everybody.
Let me back
it's
up.
It's making no sense.
Let me back up a second. So you said the numbers that they're projecting don't come close, or the numbers themselves don't come close to the flu epidemics of the past.
The numbers that we are being given already are revealing that they're far less than the statistics we have from previous flu seasons.
So, do you know like specifics, like the flu? Do you know how many people the flu killed last year in the United States?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't dare say a number, without being accurate.
Well, do you have
80,000 people?
A ballpark? Maybe I can look it up.
I'm going to throw that number out there, and I have to admit that I don't know if that's accurate. But
so
a couple of months ago, when this thing broke, and I thought, what? Wait a minute.
All right, so you're saying 80,000. Let's just take that number, because I've heard numbers in that ballpark, like 30 to 60,000. Maybe
something like 62,000. I don't know. These
maybe
numbers are coming in my head.
Maybe in one year there was 80,000, but yeah, in the tens of thousands is common for the flu. Now, you're saying this doesn't, to quote you, doesn't come anywhere close to that.
Not so far. I do have United States. Okay, this was April 5th. I wrote this down, and it was in the evening. As of April 5th, we had 9,619 deaths in the United States from this virus.
Right, and it's April, so we're 4 months into the year.
Right.
So if you project that out, and it's on the rise, so the daily numbers aren't going down yet, and exponential growth as far as deaths. Let's not talk about the those who just have it, because those are different numbers, and those are, I think, much more difficult to rely on. But as far as deaths, that's like the numerator. We know how many people are dying. We don't know the denominator, how many people have it.
There are a lot of troubling questions around all of this, and they're putting out these statistics, the numbers, for example, confirmed cases.
Well, let's stick to deaths. So you said that we're not coming anywhere close to flu-like numbers. That by the end of the year we won't be anywhere near 80,000. Is that what you meant?
Well, I wasn't I wasn't projecting, all the way to the end of this. No. Yeah, those numbers are going to go up for
Right.
sure.
But
And we haven't reached that yet to draw final conclusions, but
well, when you say we're not, these numbers aren't anywhere near those numbers. This is brand new. We have years and years and years of flu numbers, and so we only have really 2 months technically of information about this virus because it started in December, but the numbers from Wuhan in China are suspect.
oh well, that there's no doubt about that.
So
That's not a question.
that's why I'm just focusing on the United States because
Yeah,
we'll
right.
typically be more reliable because you have 50 states that all have to, report, and that it's in our best interest to be accurate. So, what if we're at 20,000 deaths by the end of this week?
Well, that's the course it's going to take. Then you have to, start accepting that. You've got to accept that. And
All right, I went on a tangent. Well, no, this is the topic we're talking about, but um, I I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just um, I'm asking questions about certain assertions or assumptions that you make. So right now, we are way below what a lot of the models have said. Actually, we're way below what most of the models have said. So that's good
right.
news. That's good
And
news.
they're beginning to report. I've been watching the news this morning. They're beginning to report. The governor of New York has reported that New York is now on the down, the down
Right there,
part of the apex.
the daily deaths are dropping.
Are dropping.
That's how
Correct.
you measure it. Or
Yeah.
they have for the last 2 or 3 days straight. I think something like that. That's how they can
Right.
measure the trend. But I want to get back to what you were saying. So the outbreak itself may not be a Chernobyl event, but you said something else is, and I want to.
The response to it.
All right, go.
Well, I already mentioned, here we are on lockdown as a nation. Our economy has been threatened like it's never been threatened before. That's Chernobyl.
Is Chernobyl a city?
Yes, in Ukraine.
Got it. And so,
I'm saying, the economic impact of this response is the Chernobyl event. It could crash our economy.
yep.
So that's how I would compare it with Chernobyl
Well,
from
that's
an economic standpoint.
and to what do we attribute that? I mean, why would you surmise that such an overreaction or seemingly overreaction has happened?
Why has that happened? My dad always told me, when you're not sure about something, he said, always trust your gut. Even if you don't have the facts in front of you, always trust your gut. And my gut tells me that this whole thing was orchestrated for a purpose to crash our economy.
By if something's orchestrated, somebody was behind it.
Well, the deep state, everybody's heard about the deep state. We used to joke about it. No, the deep state, you people are a bunch of conspiracy theorists. And you cannot help if there are politicians in our own government who are trying to destroy our president. They'll stop at nothing. And they have, for the past 4.5 years, orchestrated agendas to try to destroy this president. Why do they hate him? Why do they want him gone? For what purpose do they have in mind? Who are these people? Who are they attached to? Where are their orders coming from? And that sounds dramatic, I know, but, is this a political war?
Well,
There's an agenda.
politics is a war, period. It's a war of ideas and policy. But as far as orchestration, in my most conspiratorial here, I'll go ultra conspiratorial. I don't believe what I'm about to say. I'm just speculating because conspiracy is fun. I mean, that's what the best movies are made of, or your best spy thrillers are conspiratorial. And there's plenty of actual conspiracy that goes on. But I don't believe what I'm about to say. I'm going to say it in a way that sounds like some mastermind was behind all of this. But that I don't believe.
Master group.
But this, sure, it's possible all of this could have been a scheme that someone predicted everything that would happen, and they were one step ahead or 15 steps ahead of everyone else. So here's the conspiratorial. The election of 2016 did not go the way the most of the world expected it. Up until that point, foreign bad actors had been working their way into the U.S. economy and buying up everything, businesses and politicians, contributing and pushing policies in the lobby, through lobbyists, etc., and exporting industry from the United States, etc. And so that's been an ongoing operation for a long time. And then this election happens, and an outsider takes office and gets to, make decisions and look into what's going on. And
why do they hate this outsider?
Because he's not. Well, he's an outsider. Period. Because he's not a part of the scheme or the plan. He's a businessman. He just knows his goal has been to. People will argue with what his motive has been, but any businessman tries to make a successful business, right? They want their businesses to succeed. They want to be efficient. They give a lot of people jobs, and they want their workers want their employees to be happy, and et cetera, et cetera. And so here's a businessman who, on a whim, maybe says, "I think I'll run for president," and he ends up winning. And so there's this large, deep mechanism. Again, I wouldn't say there's like one person at the top controlling it, but there's a general. People's pockets are being lined by someone, right? There's money going around that politicians are in the pockets are beholden to whoever is, paying them, and that's both sides of the aisle. There's independents may be included, but.
And you can't deny when Donald Trump came to run and debates were going on, et cetera, he was pretty outspoken about exposing corruption. Can't deny that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
he has.
That's pretty much was one of his top issues, and he'd been talking about China all that time, even when he was running for office. That China is not our friend; they're a bad actor. So when this thing happens, and he gets into office, which gives him, the reins to the justice system, to the CIA, to the FBI, even though there's a lot of, players within those departments that are opposed to him, there are plenty of people, good people in those parts of government that are just doing their job, and that's all we want them to do, is to do their job, not to be partisan, not to side with foreign agents and enemies. Anyway, let
And
me.
you have to remember, John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and an attempt was made on Reagan's life. They failed, but it was.
Well, let me fast forward.
For the same reasons.
You're going backwards. I'm going forward. Let me fast forward. So he's in office, and he's attacked and investigated continually. Like, he's continually under investigation, which you would think would hinder him and slow him down. And I'm sure he has been, the executive branch had been slowed down by all these things, but he was actually also still doing a lot of work that arguably it benefits the country. And I would say yes, he's been doing good things for the country even while being investigated and attacked. Then last summer, he officially changed the status of China in the financial markets. I don't know what it's called, but he removed China from a list of approved actors. Basically, China, he said they are a currency manipulator. Like, he removed them from a list of approved, like, these are people who are trusted, they're reporting responsibly how their economies are going, so their monetary unit, we can be relied upon as the reporting. Well, he removed China from that list because China, well, he can see the numbers. He's in a position where he can see what's really going on, and so one of his top issues has been to reveal what's really going on in China in international trade, et cetera, and how we're being taken advantage of, et cetera, et cetera. So he's been acting, and so he made that move, and China's goal is to take over the world. I mean,
well, there you go. That's
my
point.
And they're in it for the long haul. They're looking 30, 40, 50, 100 years down the road. We're looking to...
No, not 100. 2032 is their goal.
No, I just mean...
the most powerful nation
right.
on the planet.
But the most powerful nation isn't a world dominator, right? I'm talking about they want to take over the world. They want to not just be the most powerful nation.
Right.
So they're looking 100 years down the road, or however long that would take, if their plans happened, or if their plans were successful. What's standing in their way? The most powerful nation in the world that now has a president who's not in their pocket, and
in order to achieve their goal, they have to crash the economy of the most powerful nation in the world.
That is the only
First.
Like, with a system like we have, an open and free society where information flows freely, which is the opposite of what they do in a society like this. The truth shall set you free, right? And so with the free flow of information, they can't control what we know. They can't control what we believe and what we know. They've been trying to, but it's getting away from them with the advancement of technology. And that's another thing. Not just the United States being kind of a hindrance to their plot, but the free flow of information is a huge hindrance to their plot. So I feel like whether this was orchestrated, pandemics happen, viruses get out, like every 10 years or so there's a virus that gets out in a part of the world. And so knowing that, somebody could have had a plan in place, like, when the next virus breaks out, let's do this, this, and this. So again, I'm being conspiratorial. I'm not saying this happened, but I'm saying it's a theory. And so when a deadly virus breaks out in a city larger than New York City, here's an aside. Italy, France, Spain, and the United States have all passed up the numbers that China has been reporting, right? We've all passed up China's numbers in New York City alone, they've passed up China. Do you believe those numbers are true? That China only had 2 deaths yesterday from the Wuhan. Like, that's what they reported. Only 2 deaths. I looked at the numbers. I have my kids tracking it. They had 2 deaths yesterday, right? China.
If you believe anything in terms of information that comes out of China, you're a fool.
Yep. And so that's kind of my litmus. Anybody who's saying things in our media that mirrors what China says, what China's official line says, it 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 shows what who's paying who. Even if even if the media don't realize that's where their money's coming from, or even if they're not taking money from China, they are still being an extension of the propaganda arm, or they're a propaganda arm of a communist regime. That was always the worst possible thing you could imagine in history, but that's currently happening. Well, Mom, we're going a little long. Clearly,
we need to change. We need to change our brand to the.
well, the global Chernobyl will be a recurring segment on this podcast.